Perfect. So hello. I'm very excited to be talking
Hello.
all things witches again.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, so much magic and stuff's happening, and obviously the energies are ridiculous right now because we are
Oh.
approaching Samhain and eclipse and la la la. But before we get into that,
Mm.
introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are.
Okay. Hi. Thank you, Cheryl, for I feel like saying having me on your show. That's what it feels like. Well,
This is my
I
chat.
am on the Cheryl Prince. You're on the Cheryl Prince show. I love it. No. So my name is Ria, and I run a theatrical walking tour business called Historical Tours. So my main offering at the moment is a witch tour. Is about the history of witches persecuted in London in particular, called Hex and the City. I'm very proud of that name, sorry.
Yeah, I thought that last night. I was like, You have got some names, like they're really good."
If there's one thing I'm proud of, it's that name. So
Yeah,
that was a moment of like, whoa, it rarely happens with me, but I was quite pleased with that. Um, but yeah, so it's, I mean, you came on it last
yeah,
night, so I mean, yeah, it'd be great to
yeah,
hear your feedback on it. Yeah,
yeah. So I
it was
think
launched.
carry on.
Sorry, go on. Yeah. No, it's just it's cutting out a little bit, so I think this is going to happen. But it was launched last Halloween, so it was really popular last Halloween, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to bring it back again for the following Halloween. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And what made you go right witches and touring? And because I assume before this, did you
yeah,
have your own company, or was you? I just acting. I
no,
don't want to say just acting because that's not just
just. Well, sorry, I didn't hear you said just. It
acting
cut
before
out.
that.
Oh, acting. Well, no. Well, the thing is, I'm actually not an actor. I've never trained in acting. I was a teacher for 12 years. And I was teaching not children but adults as English as a foreign language. So basically, COVID happened and I lost my job. But I was already dabbling in the tour guiding. So I was working as a freelance tour guide and ghost tours, and really enjoyed that. But I was doing other people's tours, and other people's scripts and talking about things that other people have written. And I thought actually there's other stuff that I feel like I want to talk about. And I've had such an interest in, well, women's history in general, but yeah, witch persecution. I think it's something in all of us. It's in our DNA, it's in our bones, it's ancestral, isn't it? It's like it's really it just really drew me. And I'm trying to remember what kind of first gave me the spark to do it, but I always read books about this stuff. So I'd read a book called Accused.
Yeah.
I don't have you probably heard of this book. I can't remember the writer now. I'm going to have to look her up because it was ages ago. But it was, each chapter was a witch, a woman who'd been persecuted as a witch in the British Isles, and it was a case study on her story. And I noticed that there were a few London ones, and I thought, well, this is interesting. Like, has this been done? Has there been a walking tour about these women? And I looked around and I couldn't find anything. So I just thought I'd like to write my own. And because I'd worked in for an immersive Halloween theatre company just briefly, I'd kind of fell into that because I knew the person that ran it, and she said, look, we need emergency cover, can you come in and just so I'd never done any acting, and I just kind of stepped into it and really enjoyed it. So I thought, well, that's actually a really good concept. Can't I bring that into the tours? So just have a little bit of like bringing it to life with monologues and various
Yeah.
things. So it was a bit of an experiment, really.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't I didn't know if it would work,
Wow, brave,
but
brave,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's
Because I have to say, I did think, wow, why isn't there? I mean, I've been on this crusade for 5 years now, writing about witches, but
yeah,
also very focused on London myself, like you. That I thought,
yeah,
why are we not really? I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't feel like there was enough debate about witches because it feels like there's a second
yeah,
wave going on right now, particularly
yes,
in Scotland.
definitely,
But why I was so excited that
yes,
your tour, I was like, yes, London, um,
yeah,
which is and to bring that history here is fascinating.
yeah,
And the city itself, it's stunning to come around and walk
yes, Yeah.
walk those streets, and we felt a little bit like we were on a film set yesterday, because we were like,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
so
Yeah.
special to be, even though obviously you
Yeah.
don't hire London spaces, you walk around it, but for some
Yeah.
reason it felt different, maybe because it was at night, or you were looking with new eyes at London. And
Yes.
I loved the fact that the first witch that you spoke about, I mean, I don't love what happened at all, but that
Mm.
I'd auditioned with Eleanor Gloucester, Duke of Gloucester, Princess, who was she?
Eleanor Cobham, the
That's it.
Duchess of Gloucester.
Duchess
Yeah.
of Gloucester. I was like, she
Yeah.
wasn't a duke. Suddenly she can't be a man.
Yeah.
So I knew a
Yes.
lot about her from Shakespeare, but never
Yeah.
about the links that you
Right.
were putting in, which was fascinating, and the history of London.
Ah.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
what people don't know enough is that there's the cunning folk history, which are the healers of London. And for me, that how
Mm.
much that, I mean, I personally think that the witch history is a bit of an agenda to silence the folk people and keep the power in the wrong hands, because
Yeah.
there are known
Oh,
magic
yeah.
practitioners.
100%.
So
Mm.
for me, the more I can
Mm.
learn
Yeah.
about London and its true history, and its occult and
Mm.
witch and mediums and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I find it fascinating. But like we were saying before, it's actually not
Mm.
that public, or not that out there, and it's actually hard to find as much detail about them.
Yeah, 100%. I found it really a struggle to find stories about London witches in particular, because most of it focuses on Matthew Hopkins and the East Anglia witch hunts, and also the Pendle witches.
Yeah,
These are kind of the most, researched and talked about. And then, of course, Salem, there's tons of information about that. And
yeah,
but yeah, it is really hard. Really, I've really had to dig. That book, that The Accused, I found that very, very useful. But in terms of but there were a few that I couldn't include in the tour because it was a walk, and I really wanted to, but because obviously we have to limit the location, we can't
yeah,
walk for miles and miles. But there are cases of there was one particular case in Camden I really wanted to talk about. This Mother Damnable, you've probably heard about her.
only just heard about her. Only
Yeah.
just.
Okay, yeah, no, she was one of the first, and I thought, oh, okay, right, I'm going to do a Camden tour, but because you see they're all dotted all over the place, so it's really hard to find. You've got to find a link and then keep it in one area. So doing the tours, I suppose with theatre, if you're in a venue, you can talk about all these different places, but it is location specific. So I would like to do another one and talk about the other the ones that I haven't covered.
Yeah,
And also the 60s, the revival with the Alexandrian Wicca, and there's a few interesting stories there in more recent history.
yeah,
Not so much about persecution, but certainly about silencing and the sexism, that misogyny that was going on there. I mean, there's a lot there with, what was his name? Gardnerian Wicca, but also the Alexander's, I think his name was, in the 60s, who was sort of leading a bit of a revival, a bit of a cult, and he had lots of women, and there was all kinds of things going on there. It was the 60s. But
and the
yeah,
origins,
there's,
and
say
the
again.
origins as well. I mean, I've
Yeah.
spoken briefly before, and it's kind of something I try and bring forward a lot. But there's
Hmm.
also the big dark side of the occult, because then there's these
Yes.
witches, and women and healers that have been accused, and mediums, and people that are totally misaccused, and haven't, are just everyday people. And then we've got
Yeah.
there's also this dark underground of occult magic working alongside in our history. So I think there's so much when you start to unpick it that you go, oh wow.
Really is, and there's so many different directions you can go in, and in so much more detail. I think what you're saying about that could be a tour in itself, talking about the folk healers of London, and that's a whole big topic. I suppose there's only so much detail you can go in an hour and a half, which is why I try to keep it quite concise. But oh my god, there's so many directions you could go with it, like you say, like the side, the occult. Aleister Crowley, there's a whole thing there. Yeah,
I've been studying a lot of Crowley of late, as I'm looking at like
Have you?
magic, and I'm trying to bring that into. I think it's because my second play is based in ancient Egypt, and then it comes up to modern day and
Oh,
transhumanism.
wow.
So it's very much attacking a dark
Ah,
way.
that's so interesting. Well, the minute you mentioned transhumanism, I think it might have been a prophetic dream. I very rarely have these,
Yeah.
but I had a prophetic, well, I had this dream that was just so vivid. I think it might have been prophetic. About 3 years ago now, so pre-COVID,
Yeah.
and it was I was in a refugee camp basically, and I was sitting watching the news, and there was a sort of transhuman news presenter, and we were all watching this, and we all knew they weren't like us because we were original humans.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here,
No,
but I
I'm
feel like
getting
this
chills.
is
Keep going. Keep going.
the moment to share this. Honestly, this gave me chills for ages. I couldn't forget this dream, and I was watching, and we were watching them, and they were, they were perfection. They were talking about how we were being pushed out of society basically because we weren't perfect. We couldn't learn things as quickly as they could. We didn't have such fast capacity. We couldn't heal from illness like they could because they were the transhuman. It was basically a two-tier society where we were living on the fringes and they were just taking over the world. All the actors, I was aware in my head, I think I said to the person next to me, oh, now the whole acting industry is transhuman, we're never going to get in now. And honestly, it was really quite dystopian and scary. And then it just ended. And I thought, where did that dream come from? Like, why is that the future? And it's just stayed with me, actually. It could well happen because they looked like us, these transhumans, but they weren't. They were partly computer, basically.
And have you done much research into the world? Because that's when it got scary, because I tend to channel myself.
It scares me.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm onto the dark agenda stuff, because basically I was not happily, I was over COVID because all of my theatre work, I was about to put on Awaken, my first play, and then everything shut down, and it was like, oh no, I've lost everything. Like, there's no way of getting funding, nothing's open. And so you have to go, well, what could I do? And I was like, right, I can get back to writing a second play. I've got this window. But I was originally just writing about Egypt and exploring that world. And then suddenly this whole transhuman thing came out of me, and mind control and all of this stuff. I was like, I'm not even interested in this stuff. And I started to write a whole new story. And then seeing how they were linked. And then I started, after channeling it all out of me, doing the research. And I was like, oh my God. Oh.
And you were accurate. Yeah.
This is everything. This is still to do with dark magic. This is still to do with the Egyptian timeline when dark technologies first came in. And I was like, on a whole education, like, I basically had my second awakening. The witch one was the first one. Because I got into the witch story. I mean, I'm thinking about it today as I was having my bowl of soup. I was like, and it's so funny that I write a whole play because I see a past life regression when I was killed as a witch, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to write about this. And it's such a sort of a spiritual way in to developing more of the story. And I was speaking to Ellie's friend about it yesterday, and thought, oh, this might not be how everyone accesses witch culture, having a kind of lived experience of it. But I think that's why, this is just how I work. I channel my work. I think loads of artists do. So it does not surprise me that you had that dream at all. I had a very similar one about a concentration camp, and it ended up being in my play 3. But I had it way before COVID, and everyone was wearing masks, and there was diseases where people couldn't touch.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote the whole premise and thought, that's too dark. I don't want to write that, as if everyone's going to go around in masks and not touch each other. And then I read back the little bio that I wrote for it now, and I was like, oh my God.
That's insane. Well, you've prophetic gifts without a doubt. But like you say, I think a lot of creatives do. I'd never thought about this. I'm not really interested in sci-fi or anything like that. So it wasn't something on my agenda at all.
Oh, so what are you going to
Yeah,
do with
it
it?
was really, and then obviously all this, yeah, well, exactly. And then all this stuff, COVID, and then there was a lot of talk, highly censored talk about how this was part of the transhumanism agenda. And I was just like, oh my God. And I remembered that dream, and it really, really gave me chills.
Yeah.
And it's changed my outlook on it. But so you have a past life memory of being persecuted as a witch. I haven't had that. I haven't had any. I'd love to go down that route of past life regressions. I haven't managed that yet. But
Yeah. I mean, I
can you talk about?
yeah, I talk. So basically, when I first outed Awaken, I wasn't out as a witch either. So it was like 4 years
Right.
ago, and somebody in the audience, when I had my first reading, asked me what right I had
Yeah.
to speak about witch history, me. And that's the first time I,
Wow.
because I was killed as a witch in a past life. So I'm going to come back and talk about it. And from that moment on,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not going to approach witch history from a unspiritual perspective, because I'm a healer. I'm a trained healer.
Mm,
So my
yeah.
work
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
in past life regression. My work is in energy healing. My work is in soul retrieval.
Mm,
This is my work.
mhm, mhm,
And I honor it over
mhm.
there as a healer and in all spiritual communities. But then it got to the point where it was like, hang on, if I'm coming to the witch history and bringing it to her story, which is the healers and the mediums, which is in my heritage too,
Mm,
but I'm silencing that
mm.
voice in me,
Yeah.
that I'm not doing what I set out to do, which was finally, I want to hear the healer's voice on stage for the witch history, because otherwise it's only snippets
Yeah.
that you get from history books, or the fact that loads of the documentations have been burnt and destroyed and buried.
Yeah.
And the more
Yeah.
I went into
Yeah.
regressions, the more I
Mhm.
realized I've seen lifetimes where I've been drowned as a witch, burnt as a witch. I've had a lot of stuff. I've seen lifetimes where I've
For
killed.
multiple lifetimes.
Yeah, you just go
Oh,
on.
wow.
And then when I started to work with the
That's
ancient Egyptian timeline, which is what I'm
mm,
teaching more of now with my Black Rose course, because it is about challenging the dark agenda and bringing spirituality to the forefront.
mm,
I was like, oh my God, the stuff that happened in Egypt is
mm.
dark and fierce.
Wow.
But Egypt,
Yeah.
ancient Egypt, was the most spiritual, profound civilization before this. So for me, all the
Mm,
dots have added
mm.
up to where we are now, with COVID included,
Yeah.
where we're going to,
Yeah.
with everything that's
Yeah.
included. It doesn't take look long to see it with people that have eyes and ears to hear it. um,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and to me, the whole witch history fits into all of that. That actually, that was also
Yeah.
an agenda:
Yeah.
bring down magic and
Yeah.
put it into the wrong hands, and then drive underground into secret, and then it
Mhm.
gets very dark, because if there's no laws and there's no rules, and you buy out all the people that could stop you, and yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100. That's fascinating. I mean, it's amazing. You've got these lifetimes that you remember, and it makes it so relevant. And because you're a healer, you brought those gifts from your past lifetimes into this life, and that's so powerful. My God! And you're so right about how the magic it's sort of been concentrated in certain hands, hasn't it? Because I felt like I was researching John Dee, the astrologer, Queen Elizabeth I's favorite astrologer. It's very interesting, and the whole idea of alchemy, and how when they didn't just and they don't just tolerate magic, they encourage it in the right hands. We can actually see how, certain dates, the governments will choose certain dates for things, and that's because they know about energy, they know about the power of certain times, planet alignments, they know all this stuff, and yet they'll push the agenda that it's a load of nonsense, that anyone who talks about it is a bit of a wacko, like it's it's so interesting, and it's about concentrating the power in certain hands, and always has been,
And to realize
like
all the people that were working for the secret services, which which include John Dee,
mm,
who's working for the secret services, which include Aleister Crowley,
right,
and you suddenly go, hang on,
right,
darkest man ever was what?
yeah,
And then also
yeah,
really really interested me. So I came home after your tour because it seeded so many, because you clearly know your world and you love that world. And I think that's so beautiful what you brought forward with that. And I think that,
Oh,
you know,
thank
I
you.
could really tell that this is a person with a passion for this. And, you know, I know a lot and I was still like learning stuff. I thought, great, this is so I'm
Oh,
really
good.
glad you're doing this tour. And just before I forget to ask, how long's this one running for? How long are you running?
Oh, so yeah, it's finishes on the 4th of November. I do actually do this tour once a month throughout the year with a bookshop called Treadwell's. You've probably heard of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm in partnership with them, and they really liked it, and they said, can we, you know, promote it through our channel? So it does run once a month throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Treadwell's. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's up their street.
yeah, totally up their street. But you
Mm.
spoke something because, well, two things. Helen Duncan, which yeah, really sparked something in
Yes.
me and you. But the well, I'll start with Helen Duncan, which I think when I came to it, I was like, oh, I'm not sure how she's related to London, because I kind of knew all her sort of history and what was going on with her and didn't really place her. Obviously, in the
Yeah.
court, that problem
Yeah.
hit me. But as we talk about secret agents and governments and things that
Yeah.
are constantly using mediums and channelers and people that work with this stuff, and then the people that are doing it
Yes. Yeah.
naturally, which she was, and bringing forth for people that don't know
Mhm.
knowledge about ships going down and people that died that people didn't know about, and this was all sort of army information
Yeah.
that wasn't out in the public, and that's why they went
Mm.
after her. But as I said to you, it's so strange because the laws went against her for being fraudulent, but she couldn't possibly have
Mm.
been fraudulent because she outed information that wasn't meant to know. And then the actual way that she was
Mm.
killed was through
Mm.
them raiding her, and she was
Yeah.
emitting ectoplasm.
Yeah.
And then she got I don't know what degree burns it was, but it was burns that killed her 5 weeks later
Yeah.
from raiding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it's like, and still we
Mm.
talk about this other side of witch history. We're just going to
Mm.
get perpetuated with the same old
Yeah.
crap that's not really
Yeah.
looking at what's really happening in witch history and magic
Exactly.
and the occult,
Yeah.
making things hidden, or just going that they were fraudulent. I mean, how
Yeah.
many times mediums are cast as fraudulent, and it frustrates me because I've worked with so many people. I work with spirits, and I
Yeah.
just tell them
Yeah.
stuff, and they go, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, wow!" and make their life better for it.
Exactly. Exactly. There's such an arrogance around it. Excuse me. There's just an assumption all the time that they're more likely to be fraudulent than not. You know, there's always just that assumption. Like whenever you talk about psychic mediums, I mean, I don't know if I shared this with you, Cheryl, I might have done, but I was actually doing a ghost tour not long ago. This gives me chills when I think of this. Not my witch tour. I was doing a ghost tour, you know, freelance for another company.
Yeah.
And I had a whole family come on the tour, just one big family group, 20 members of the same family, which is quite unusual. Normally, you know, there's different people unrelated, but they booked just a private tour, and they were called the Hopkins family. Now, I to them jokingly straight away, oh, I assume you're not related to Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, haha. And then they turned around and said, actually, yeah, we are descendants. We know about him. Not only are they descendants, they're a family of mediums. So, including the sort of patriarch of the family, who is apparently quite a well-known medium called John Hopkins. And, you know, the evening was absolutely fascinating because they were telling me, they were predicting what I was about to say. Now, I suppose you could argue that they've researched the stuff and they know it. But at the end, they said, the guy, John Hopkins, came up to me and said, I can see that you're a witch. And I was sort of laughing. And I said, well, yeah, actually, that's true. And then he said, Matthew is, this is going to sound funny when I say it now, but Matthew is saying that he's sorry, but he didn't know what he was doing. So he passed that message to me. which was a bit like, whoa, okay. And then he said, and then he started telling me about my dead relatives, things he couldn't possibly know. And it was really chilling. Like, he didn't know me. When he booked the tour, the name of the tour guide is not given. He doesn't know who I'm going to be when I turn up. He didn't know anything about me. I was just leading the tour. And he was telling me things about my grandmother standing next to me, my dad on the other side, and describing them, you know. And I just think, I told other people this story, and the reaction was, oh, but, you know, he's probably looked you up, and or he's probably, you know, there's always just the assumption that it's bollocks, right? But, what a coincidence, you do a witch tour and you get the Hopkins family on your tour, you know, there must be. And I said, but don't you think this is how spirit works? This is, you know, a sign. This is the universe. This is, like, for me, it was so profound. I had goosebumps for ages, you know. It was just like, this is a message, you know, it really is. But there's so much skepticism. And, you know, like with the Helen Duncan thing, you know, we got the 1951 Fraudulent Mediums Act, which came out as a result of that, which I think really sort of, you know, cemented the kind of narrative that mediums are a load of rubbish. But it's so arrogant, because we just assume everything and we can explain everything. Yeah. And I honestly, I'm so thankful to you for telling, you know, for talking about Helen Duncan yesterday and how she died, because that was something that, if you try and read about that, you will not find, unless you look on the Duncan family website, you're not going to find anything which says that they killed her. You're just going to, she was obese, she was in poor health, and she, you know, it's absolute nonsense that she was killed after a raid. But what a coincidence that she did die after this raid. You know, like, yeah. Can we not? Yeah, from burns. Well, where does that come from then? You know, it's so frustrating. And obviously it's personal for you as well, because you're a medium, aren't you? I mean, you've got mediumship ability.
Yes, and
yeah, of course you have.
Honestly resisted my whole life stepping into it. And then, because it was like, it's naturally happened to me. I've seen a spirit before, which happened out of the blue when I was training as an actor, and my nan came forward physically, and it changed my world, because I was like, oh my God, it changed everything. Yeah. And it was a profound experience, to have that connection. I've never seen any since, but they appear to me, they will step in. I mean, they're here now. So I'm going to have to speak about one of them. Because my great-grandfather is Cecil. Oh. He's a very famous medium, and he's been supporting me on this journey, of which I'm going to get really emotional, because I realised only in the last few weeks, and maybe even on the tour, when I was like, I have to speak about Helen Duncan, because I've honoured the mediums to say, I will speak for you and I will get our voices heard, and however you were misrepresented. Because when I found out that my great-grandfather was a medium, I didn't know until I was writing my play, and my auntie, my great auntie, said to me, you do know who's in our family, look him up. And I looked him up, and the first thing I found on Wikipedia, which is, he's one of the top 25 mediums, is fraudulent medium Cecil Husk, and that's it. There's a paragraph, and I just took that at the time. I didn't think too much about it. Then I started to study witch laws and thought, hang on, this all feels wrong. And then I started to really research him, and the amount of people that sat with him and changed his life. And right on his deathbed, because he went blind right at the end, and he was in poverty, and all the people that he'd ever done readings for came and just supported him and cared for him in his final days. Now, if this is a fraudulent medium, why has he got that community support? And there's reasons, and people traveled to work with him, like quite famous people work with him. So it's like, no, you're just blacklisting his name, which I appreciate. And when you look into it and you do your research, and beyond that, I don't need to just look at papers. I know that he's come through me to go, you know, use your gifts to me, like don't keep them on, otherwise the Witchcraft Act and the people have won. So I refuse to silence about who I am as a witch.
Good. Yeah.
And secondly, to write to the amazing knowledge that he was bringing forward as what I call sort of a good witch medium that we've struggled through our history to work with, because we're not the people not meant to work with it, because
Yes, exactly.
and power in
Exactly.
a beautiful way to go to people and go, your loved one's here. It's
Yes, yes.
that. It's beautiful
It,
experience. And to tell them that there's no
yeah,
death and that you're a soul that keeps on going living. And it goes back to the transhumanist agenda. Everything's been set up by the dark agenda to tell us we don't have souls, because they
exactly.
capture your soul, harvest your soul, take your soul, traumatize your soul,
Yeah,
witches. And once we have a soulless society, what do we have?
yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah,
complete.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, it's something that you just feel, isn't it? You feel that they're trying to make us forget who we are. I feel as if, I do feel though positive about, obviously I had this prophetic dream, but maybe that's the way it could go. Maybe it was a warning, I don't know, but it feels like there's a massive wave at the moment, doesn't it, that of remembering. There really is, of remembering who we are, and that's really encouraging. I feel like we could go in two ways. I'm hoping that we're going in the right way. Astrology seems to suggest that this is unstoppable. The dark agenda cannot stop this. This awakening is happening. It's happening, and we've got so much support. But you're so right what you say about this gift of giving, of telling people that their loved ones, it's like no therapy you're ever going to get. I mean, I found it so, I wasn't brought up religious in any way. My parents believed ashes to ashes, dust to dust. My mum still believes that. My dad's passed, but I don't know. I was very much drawn to this kind of area recently. I would say recently, last 5-6 years, something like that, and reading about, and learning about how our souls, we're eternal. We don't die. It's so comforting. I find comforting. I think, why would you not want to believe this and teach this? Why is this, knowing that we just go on to another form, or we go on to maybe incarnate into another body, but we're always there. We're always there. And it's so profound. So I totally agree with what you're saying. It's beautiful. It's beautiful gift.
Pull into that is the astral realm, which is something that I've been working with for a long time, which I kind of started writing about. Is where a lot of the shamanic work I do, and I kind of touch on it in the play of Awaken, where she's psychopumping, so she's trying to help. I won't ruin the play too much if I say, because it's online at the moment, but she's trying to get spirits to the light when she comes back in a second lifetime. And this is work that I do to help people to cross over. And it's just something that I have not known how I know to do, but I've just, as soon as I started to get shamanically trained, I was psychopumping, which is what it's called, all over the place. And I was like, oh, how it just came so natural. And it wasn't something that I knew about before. Just getting spirits to go but a lot of spirits get stuck, and for me this is part of a darker agenda, that we won't reincarnate properly, and we'll get stuck in a karmic wheel. And what I want to say is encouragement is that the more you know, the more power you have to make life choices that are pro-life and that are pro-spirit, pro-soul, and pro-humanity at its core, that this dark agenda can't play out. But going back to a time where we are a little bit perplexed and numb to everything. And I've been there, I was Cheryl Prince party girl, just living for the weekend, annihilating myself with drugs. And,
Same.
it wasn't
Yeah.
So there's no judgment on it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the time is now to awaken.
Yes.
Free of the paradigm.
Yeah.
Really positive. But I feel that there's an edge that people might go back to sleep, because people are itching for normality. We've been through these lockdowns and these disruptive times, so in some ways there's a race back to normality, but we can't. It wasn't normal, it's distorted. So we need to go into that new earth or 5D reality, which I talk about, so that we
Yeah.
can be like, no, we're
Yeah.
ascending, we're not devolving.
Hmm.
Dark agenda is about
Yes. Yeah.
someone. So as long as you keep
Yeah.
ascending, and that does mean acknowledging soul and spirit and darker forces, so that you can work with it all and transmute it, and not
Yeah. Yeah.
get
I
hoodwinked.
mean, it's one of the reasons. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's one of the reasons I gave up drinking. I just had a sudden urge to just stop altogether, just completely stop. And same as you, I was. I mean, living in London, I suppose you just get sucked into that, don't you? And the
yeah,
party lifestyle and working 5 days a week, numbing yourself and forgetting everything at the weekend, and just not thinking about things. And as soon as you stop all that, it's a bit of a shock, isn't it? Because
yeah,
you kind of then are confronted with shadow like
oh,
immediately, and
yeah,
it's just really hard. And I think there's, like you say, that people are on the cusp, yeah, because it is really a hard work to do, isn't it? And it's something that we're not encouraged to do. We're encouraged to numb ourselves with drink and drugs. That's what they want,
yeah,
that's what the dark forces want. But yeah, exactly, because it's numbing spirit. It's alcohol, interesting, because in Arabic it means body eating spirit. It's an Arabic word. And I
wow,
think that's so interesting, isn't it? Because it does eat your body, but it's also, it just numbs your soul. It's not just alcohol, many drugs, but yeah, I've just noticed profound changes since I stopped drinking. I feel like I'm doing an advocate for AA now, but but it's stop drinking, kids. It's bad for you. But yeah, it's yeah, and I think that, yeah, 5D, the new Earth. I do feel like it's happening. We're a bit in the birth canal at the moment. It's like the dark night of the soul, isn't it?
yeah.
A little bit.
And I
And
think
like you say, that normality, that wasn't normal.
no,
It
God,
wasn't what we are here for.
no.
God no.
And I think
Yeah.
reassuringly, because I've been through like three of the stages, where when I had my first wake up call and I was like, oh my God, I can't go on living like this. I was a casting director for years, and I was numbing myself, and I was heartbroken. I was just in a mess. And then changed careers to act.
Yeah.
It was what I wanted to do. And then that was my first awakening, when I saw spirit. And, it was quite an intense awakening. And then it got to be quite lonely,
Yeah.
because I think that happens to a lot of people, where you stop partying. So you stop, people are like, who are you? And you're on about this spiritual stuff. And I was training as a healer and being an actor, and everyone's like, I don't know who you are.
Yes.
And then you find new
You
groups.
lose a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
just don't have the same things in common. And then
No.
you find a lot of spiritual circles you're comfortable. And then I wanted to sort of move back into theatre, but be myself in theatre, not spiritual. I was like, why are we not allowed to tick the box to say, I'm an underrepresented, persecuted people? Because I am. All
Yeah.
spiritual people are. And yet
Yes.
there's no want so much for that, although I believe that's changing. But
Yeah.
then I went through the second wave, where I was like, okay, I've had the dark night, so I've had the awakening to spirit. And then I was like, oh my God, society is not what I thought it was. And I believe
Hmm.
that's what people are still going through now, to go,
Hmm.
what? It's like you work with your
Yeah.
own shadow,
Yeah.
own light, and then you go, oh my God,
Yeah.
look at the world that I
Yeah.
never saw.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think humans, in a lovely way, I know I can speak for myself, are quite empathetic, loving people. So they always expect the best from people. So it's hard to actually contemplate
Yeah. I think so.
that people,
Yeah. But I
be,
think, yeah. 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 No, sorry. No, yeah, I think you're right. I think generally we are, but I've forgotten what I was going to say now. But yes, but we're just we're just encouraged to just numb everything out all the time. That's what I think it is. We're just completely we're brainwashed. Like from the minute we're born, we're brainwashed with everything, and and also, that's what I was going to say. I feel like everyone's going through a collective trauma healing at the moment. It's almost everyone I know has started therapy recently. It's and this is a good sign. But I think the whole planet is doing some kind of massive collective trauma healing, we've all gone through so much trauma, not just in our lifetimes, but in previous lifetimes. I feel like this is the shadow. It's all coming up, but it's a lot to deal with. It really is. And that's why it's so easy it's the easier path is to go back to sleep, go back to sleep and continue on in the way we've always gone. But I don't think we can't do that. That's not what, and we will generally be pushed in this direction at different speeds, I think.
And I think that's why I'm so keen to always try and speak my spiritual truth in as much places and spaces as possible.
Yes.
There's the handhold. I know that people that have done it for me, that have led the way before me, and I was like, what? How did you know this? Or
yeah.
the healer that I worked with 5 years ago when I was, going, oh my God, all these spirits are speaking to me. What do I do with it? And then I met a healer, and that she made it normal for me, and it was a gift. And then there was like truthers out there that bring this spiritual truth forward, and I was like, what? And I think that's our duty to respect the human spirit that much, that we will fight for it and talk about it and open up to it and be as truthful and honest and allowing of this growth to happen, and so that you let the people behind you oh, I didn't know that. And then that grows them, and it spreads and it spreads. And then somehow we get out of this us and them, which, always happens in witch craze, where we were totally divided between each other, and get back to like this kind of unity.
Yeah.
Be the bigger dream.
Oh, it's do you feel like do you feel with other people that you're drawn towards, and tribes that you're drawn towards, they were also witches that were persecuted in previous lives? Because I feel like we're drawn towards people that we've been with in other lives, obviously, and in different forms. Like you said, you've had a life as a persecutor of witches as well. You've been on the other side. So that's really interesting. I don't know enough about my past lives. All I've kind of been told is that I've been a nun in many lifetimes. Wow. And I've spent a lot of time in devotion of God,
wow,
bride of Christ, which is very interesting. And also a prostitute. I've also been told that. I was kicked out of a brothel. I was outcast and left to die. And that's really interesting.
What happens on your lifetimes? I was just going to say that you would have been a prostitute, because we do the flip side. So we learn the complete lesson.
Yes.
So the fact that you were the nun, in pieces, would have been the prostitute, and coming back to all of those. And to go one further, if you know about the sacred prostitutes of ancient Egypt, I'm wanting to scratch my third eye so much.
I know. I've been doing that the entire time during the call. I don't know if you've noticed, it's been itching so much.
Is that they were the divine feminine that prostrate, bowed down before God, because they had that goddess flowing through them. So in the temples, which was so beautiful, the practice was not that here's a god outside of myself. The whole practice was the god and the goddess are inside my body, and that was the Kundalini Egyptian Tantra practice that I would say us at the temples worked with. So that was your template, and then it got distorted that it had to be like sex is an absolute sin. I know you talked about some amazing things. Well, I say your other tour, which was
the Harlots.
Was it called Strumpets and Harlots, or
Harlots? Harlots, Trumpets and Tarts. Oh my,
Oh my. That was it.
Yes,
And there was like, I realized, God, how I know how distorted sex has become, but that just about how much that's impacted our history, that that was the way to survive. And that was, and everyone always says to me, oh well, prostitution's always been around, but it hasn't. Okay, so it traces back to earlier times, but there was a time when sexuality was sacred. We've just forgotten. So sacred that it could heal lands.
Exactly.
Such an aligned force. So but anyway, I'm sure that goes back to one of your timelines when you were a sacred prostitute, which is a whole different ballgame.
Quite possibly. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking Mary Magdalene every time you were as you were talking about that, and how that narrative, it goes back to Mary Magdalene, doesn't it?
Yeah. Have
You
you read
know,
the
the
Magdalene
prostitute.
manuscript? The Magdalene
I
manuscript.
haven't, no.
Read that. That's gonna
Magdalene manuscript.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's channeled by
I
Tom.
will make a note of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it changed my world. I was like, oh, it was when I
Okay.
was first on my Black Rose path, and
Yeah.
Spirit just kept telling me Egyptian Tantra, and I was like, I don't know what you mean. Tantra's not Egyptian. I don't. What are you trying to tell me? And then, yeah, and then I started to
Yeah.
channel that old wisdom keepings from the Black Rose lineage, and I was like, oh my God, this isn't the world that I've been taught. So what I love about that, and I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
say about why I'm such an advocate of going into past lives, is the first life that I saw in ancient Egypt was all the temples being burnt down with the priestess in them, because they
Wow.
had the wisdom in their body.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I saw all the books being
Yes,
burnt,
I've heard you talk about this.
all
Yeah.
of those going, and it
Yeah.
was
That's
actually the
God.
powerful thing you can do is reclamation, is to channel all those past lives, regress it, and get all your stuff back.
Yes, get all that wisdom back.
It's in your
Exactly.
soul, you know, you can burn the body and you can
Yeah.
destroy the
But the
light
soul
of it, traumatize
remembers.
people, but
Yeah.
it's in your soul. So, you know,
Exactly.
it's through
Yeah.
Akashic records or whatever you want to call it. And then
Yes.
there it is. So I think that's such an empowered thing. But I also think that's why we're not taught soul consciousness, because
Yes. Because it's too powerful. It would make us too powerful. And then we couldn't be subject to mind control. There's no way. And they know that. They know that. And yeah, it because they use, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, but they use I keep saying they, you know, them, the dark forces, but they use mediums, don't they? And they use them regularly in Secret Service and the government. They know about these powers. It's not like it's like they think it's nonsense. They don't. They know that it's all, there's a reason for. There's a really great book. Oh God, what's it called? London's Mystical Legacy. Have you read this one?
I haven't, no.
Okay, I will. I think I've got it actually. I will check the name of the writer and everything. But it's a couple of guys actually that are writing about how all the mystical, particularly in the city of London, the way things are arranged and the buildings, the exact placements, the, you know, the this is not just about ley lines, but the everything's planned, you know, absolutely everything. And it's planned, and it's very powerful people that have built this city, you know, and they know it's not by accident. It's very interesting.
But it's masonry, isn't it? And the Freemasons,
of course, yeah, the Templars,
a cult. So it's like, that's why when we run away from saying that, you know, that we're banning law, I mean, interestingly, and fact check people as you like, but I looked at Winston Churchill after you talked about him being the one that changed the laws. I have a different side of whether he was very good or not. And he said that he was a 33rd degree Mason. So changing the laws, the same as King James, they say he was a 33rd degree Mason. So let's say that means that you're totally familiar with the occult, because you would be, because it's a secret society. And the more you go up it, the more, well, I'm not even going to start to talk about what I know about the levels, but otherwise the whole dark agenda is going to come down. And
exactly, that's for me.
I got to go into this tomorrow in the Samhain Witches Retreat. So
oh God, they'll be knocking on your door.
But
where's Cheryl gone? Oh God.
She's gone to take them down. But it's like the very people that were working with the laws or bringing the laws out or changing the laws, and are not, what side are they really on? Because they're also doing in a part of a secret society that is funded on very weird things.
But that's exactly like, because although that's why I say he takes away the 1736 Witchcraft Act, but he brings in the Fraudulent Mediums Act. So it's like, it's just the same, but just in a different form, really. It's not, it is that's definitely a rabbit hole you can go down without a doubt. It's there's so much more to it. There's so much more.
I
think I only scratched the surface of it really, but yeah, there's levels. There's levels.
There's a whole load.
There's levels.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from your play. I don't want to give away anything because it's online and people need to go see it. But I just, yeah, it was really interesting. As soon as I saw that you're talking about a witch that I talk about on the tour, at the same one, and I found that really emotional. Actually, well, your whole play is very, very emotional. It was like, oh, shivers, chills.
Yeah.
Did you? I guess that you sort of channeled that play. Did you? It sort of came to you through spirit, I guess.
Yeah, unwillingly, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. That I work with it now because I'm writing a trilogy. So I'm like, okay, now I've got my Cheryl technique. So,
yeah.
but at the time, I just didn't know why I was killed as being a witch, and I wanted to know the answer because I'm a curious sort of person. And I
Yeah.
kept playing witches in acting. Like I got cast as a couple of them, and it was just rubbish. It felt like this isn't a witch. Just didn't feel
Yeah.
right. And so I thought, do you know what? I'm
No.
going to write my own. And then the more I was writing, the more sort of synchronicities came up, the more other people around me were getting affected or had, like you said earlier about, do you pull in people that have the witches in their past life? Yes, you do. And then all this
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I was training a lot as a healer at the time, but then lots of sort of awakenings were happening to me. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
this isn't
Mm.
really a story. And then more
Mm.
stuff would come through, and then I'd go and research it and realize that it happened. And I think right near the end, because I only just finished it quite near to when we shared it earlier this year, and I'm still re-editing it for a full performance, but right near the end I realized that actually what became so apparent was that I had to speak about witches that weren't allowed to work with familiar spirits, which was always in the law, like, because why not? When I work with spirit, it's enlightening and it helps things and it teaches me stuff. So suddenly I had to write about sort of mediumship, and I guess that's my grandfather and outing that kind of history and outing that natural gift that I had. So I feel like it really taught me how to, what being spiritual was, but also why I believe, I can't speak for all witches, but why I was killed for being a witch was because I worked with spirit and I wasn't allowed to. And I'd never heard that story said before about witches. It'd be like, maybe they present, oh, she has these beliefs, or she works with charms or stuff. But actually what I found out was, oh, because you were a working class maid at some point, and you had this gift that came to you naturally, like it came back today, that the message was, that was the persecution. And actually I do feel that there's a lot of us out there at the moment. And actually, when I ran a 5D witch workshop last year, and I said to everyone, do you feel afraid to speak your spiritual truth? And everyone was like, well, I do sometimes. I said, yeah, okay, around anyone, or is it just in your safe spiritual circles? And everyone was like, oh yeah, I don't want to. And I feel like that is the biggest problem that's happened, because a lot of people are taking the forum with witch talk and they're leaving either spirit out, or they're making it a bit cool and trendy and a witch reclamation, which it is also that. But there's a third stage when it's like the knowing woman, the wisdom keeper that protected you from bewitchment and spells, the one that worked with spirit, that was the folk healer, has been lost, and we have to reclaim that witch. That's what I learned from writing that play, and I'm just so grateful that, because I wanted to give up a lot along the way, because it's not easy, like you said, going into your part. It's not easy going into that history. It's
no.
But,
and trusting, and it's a lot of it's coming to mind, trusting intuition, trusting the body, and how we are all conditioned not to trust our bodies, not to trust ourselves, complete self-doubt, that is sewn into us, because that creates fear, that creates dependency on others, and it's that's so important, that reclamation of that. And I, like you say, I feel a lot of people are, but by coming together in this way, by sort of meeting other healers, witches, etc., whatever you want to call yourself, you're getting the courage to that's how it's going to be, you know, reclaimed in a way. I do think it's happening like that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So Awaken's autobiographical then, in some sense?
Yeah, I always say it's part autobiography and part storytelling, because there are
Yeah.
parts where it's clearly autobiography, and there's parts and I don't think I could want to reveal which parts are, because it
No,
feels
of course
so
not.
raw.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is from my own story, and then things have come back in this lifetime to go, oh my God, I thought that was part of the story, and then no. So there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was only writing a story, but I think that's the way I work, that it's like I'll shape a story that makes sense, and then it'll shape me and make me make sense of me along the way. So
Yes.
quite a powerful.
Yeah, you definitely get a sense. I got a sense watching it that it was intensely personal. You know, it was about your story. Yeah, I definitely got that sense. So
Yeah,
but that makes it more powerful. You know,
someone that came to watch it live turned around to her friend and went, "Yeah, this is her story. Like, she's just telling us all this."
yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, isn't that art? That's what we do with our art all the time. We are telling our stories, really.
Yes, but I think there's a premonition of things that is a bit different when you're telling Witch's story. Like, I wrote
Yes.
the second half, and without ruining it anything, you know, she comes back to the bedside and cares for someone. And
Yeah.
then, you know, when I started to go through that in life with my own father, I was like, oh, I didn't sign up for this, to live through the role. You know, like, I wrote all that a few years back, and then it all started to
Yeah.
happen, and I was like, oh God. So there's moments where,
yeah,
like I said to you, that, you know, I think before we were on, about that's a third play that I wrote that was about everyone being masked and not being able to touch each other and stuff.
yeah,
This stuff, I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you know, premonition's a big thing, and I think it should be valued, because what needs to come out will come out. And maybe the way
yeah,
storytelling is meant to be is that it's there to awaken and forewarn. And I mean, I believe, even though there's dystopian themes, and, you know, there's pain and trauma in the work that I do,
yeah,
it's more of a warning and an
yeah,
awakening and a catalyst to go, oh my God,
yeah,
it's up to who you really
to
are.
change it.
Yeah, be who
Yes.
you are. You know, you
Yeah.
have this freedom to be fully you, rather than being like, this is all
Yeah.
like, it's not. We've been through the dark ages, but we can come out better for it.
Yeah, then that's in the past. It does feel like all of that past darkness is crumbling, and there's a lot of clinging on to it from the powers that there. That's why this is quite hard times, I think, because they're just holding on to it, but trying to keep it there. But yeah, when you said that's it's in the past. That's the past, the dark ages, without a doubt. Yeah.
Did you know, one thing I have to share for you before we wrap up is that you're becoming clairaudient?
I'm becoming clairaudient, but I'm deaf in one ear.
That's why you're becoming.
Oh, do you think that's what it's about?
Yeah. The minute you told me, and I didn't.
Do you know? Okay. Do you know what's really, really strange, Cheryl, is that I've always thought that I was clairaudient, if it was anything, because I've had a voice. This is whenever I tell I say normies, when I tell people that don't like this kind of stuff that we like.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself normal, but you know, when I tell people this, they say, "Well, Maria, it sounds like schizophrenia. I think you need to go to the doctor about that," because you start saying you hear voices, but you know they're not coming from inside your head. They're coming from. I've had this, and then this happened, an intense ringing all the time, which I have read that is something to do with connecting to 5D, different frequencies. It could either be that or the 5G tower that's now outside my bloody house, which is slightly worrying, that went up just about a month ago. So I do wonder if that's connected. But thank you. Yeah, that's good to know.
It's more about stepping into it, and you can protect yourself from 5G knowingly.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it just intention?
Well, spiritual shield. One thing that I suggest that everybody does is put like black roses all around themselves.
Black roses.
Just imagine it, black roses, pull it down from the crown right down the body, shield.
Oh wow.
Most
Okay, that's interesting.
Oh, let me bring this in actually, because most people don't realize that when you get on the sort of, because when you work as a healer, you'd always clear a space, you'd clear your body, you'd be aligned and ready to work. But what most people, and you protect yourself because you know what you're working with. But most people don't realize that actually you do need to protect yourself from forces and clear out your energy.
Yes.
So it is definitely worth it with EMF frequencies and all of that stuff to be like, I am making a protection. Because basically magic comes down to commanding it. And so that if you don't think magic, you don't command the right magic, but actually it's a powerful intention, because those frequencies have nothing on human spirit. But if you're not commanding that I'm protecting myself, then in some ways it's a way of manipulating your free will, because they're saying, oh, you agree to this agenda to distort your frequencies and to break down your body. But if you command it opposite, saying, no, I'm putting a shield of protection, I'm not.
You're
using command magic.
That's really interesting. I'd not heard of the black roses. Thank you. That's really helpful. Amazing. So can I ask you about how long is your play going to be online, and is it going to be performed? Is it going to be a performance of it live?
Yes, so the idea is we're now so I'm fundraising and looking into where it's going to go. My dream is to take it for a 3-week London run, because I feel strangely
please do.
Yes, it needs to go into London.
It needs to be seen.
And it feels, because it's written partially in Canting, which predates Cockney, so that language is very special to me. And my family are Cockneys, and so I feel like my nan, who came to spirit, was a Cockney. So it's very important for me to put it on here. But interestingly, Sarah Spindler, who's the character from the first lifetime, was one of the witches killed in Bury St Edmunds. So I have a bit of a pull to Bury as well, because I just feel like Matthew Hopkins speaks to me, and I feel like it's very resonant with the witches that I work with, that the Hopkins witches are coming back to be honoured. So that's why Sarah's in it. And then Scotland, because Agnes Sampson, who is one of the witch that not started this, but because of the King James, she's speaking to me all the time, and she's like, you need to tell my story. She's pissed. I've spoken about this before on one of the Awaken the Witches, because she was a healer as well, and she was part of a coven, and they tracked her for a year before she was killed. They were tracking her, so it was like, I feel like Scotland's an important place to go. So for me, those 3 places on tour would be perfect for Awaken. It's about going onto those lands and bringing the truth home.
Absolutely.
To actually go into a full production, but I guess some people don't know how hard it is to get. Me and my theatre company, my other theatre company, Senior, we've been turned down for our 4th Arts Council funding, and our partnerships are immense. And I got turned down for funding 4 times over lockdown. It took me a year to get a reading funded. So at the moment, I'm just trying to find partnerships and ways of getting this done. It doesn't. I'm not willing to say this isn't a spiritual story, and that makes it harder to fit into sort of funding boxes.
I
still think that the world's changing, and actually what I feel like I've proven with Awaken is the response I've got from the spiritual community has been phenomenal, like people crying and people saying thank you for actually acknowledging us, and that really touched something that I didn't even know.
It does. It's profound.
That made it go, oh, I am doing it, this is why I was doing it, so we'll find a way. Go in and awaken people to what witches are. So,
no, I think it will. I feel it's going to get out there, because it has to be. So
Yeah, the witches won't let me rest until
The witches, no, their spirit is not going to let that drop. No way. That has to happen. That's been birthed for a reason. So that's
yeah.
really exciting.
So probably online
And
until sort of early next year, I think, and then I'll take it
okay,
down as we launch into full production mode. And yeah,
yeah,
and then the writer in me goes,
amazing.
right, let's finish rewriting it and making it, and then get it into a production. Because what people don't realize is that was just a script in hand reading. Like, a few people go, oh, I would have directed it like this, and I'm like, that was just a
Yeah,
script
and
I'm
you're
reading.
like,
I got funded for a
yes,
week,
yeah,
and I gave you lights and sound because it felt important. Because otherwise, how was I going to convey the spiritual world that she sees? But that was my first
exactly.
way into trying something new than just reading the script out loud with people. So I just think it
Yeah,
could go.
it's very. I like the simplicity of
Yeah,
it. Yeah, no, the simplicity of it. I know it's a reading. Yeah, it works so well. It really conveys
yeah. I
the
mean, hats
point.
off
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Law, who directed it, who did a brilliant job. Because I was like, can we have a tree? Can we do this? And she was like, just keep it simple.
Yeah,
Simple. And it was in
yeah, yeah,
beauty. And it
yeah.
was still hard to get that together in a week. Like, we ran out of time. But I think for
That's
me,
incredible. I can't believe you did that in a week.
oh no, three
I
days
can't believe you did
really.
that in a week.
3 days, yeah.
Wow, wow. Oh my God. Okay, that makes it even more incredible. Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hats off to the cast and Ellie was for putting everything together. Yeah, they were amazing. I couldn't have done it. So that was brilliant. But I just imagine what can happen because I channel spirit. My dream is to let Sarah fly on stage and
yes.
channel a bit live. And, when the
Wow.
script's in your body and you're free to just, and you know that the people that
Yes.
are in the place are the right people to be there is
Yeah.
important to me. That's the next level of taking it to a fully rehearsed production where you can bring in everything that's in that room in that moment, which are all of those witches that
Yeah.
are with me.
That's wow. That's oof, chills. That's going to be incredible. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Oh, and I know you're going to do it. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
it's going
what
to
about you?
happen.
What's next on the trajectory?
Unstoppable, unstoppable.
Yeah.
What's next for me? Well, I'm trying to. I want to write a new tour. I've got. It's very much in the infancy, but I keep think Boudica keeps coming through. I feel like I need to somehow
And
tell
about
this story. It's
Hampstead Heath, and would you do a tour on Hampstead?
yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's what I mean. I could do it. It's just stunning up there, isn't it? Anyway, and it
Yeah,
feels so powerful. It just keeps. I've thought of different ideas, and I don't know why Boudica keeps coming back. So I feel like that there's something there. So that's kind of the next project to work on.
amazing.
Uh, but yeah, but I can't tell you any more about that at the
No,
moment because I haven't done anything yet.
no, but that
Yeah.
feels really aligned. And a few people have been asking me, like, do you want to go to Boudica's Mound? And it feels like there's an energy drawn towards that. And I think it
Oh
would
yeah.
be an
It's a very
amazing,
strong energy there. Very
yeah,
strong. Yeah. And Celtic in general, because I've, my um family history is Celtic, is based in Ireland, and I don't know, Celtic history is. I'm reading a book about Celtic mythology right now, and the tribes, the pre-Roman tribes, and then what happened during. So I feel like that era needs to be explored because there's nothing about that really in London either. There's no tours really about,
no,
and everyone calls her Boadicea, which is a Roman name that was given to her. So
oh, wow.
I just that needs to be. I feel like it needs to be corrected in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh, that.
yeah.
And listen to out to, because I just posted about the witches reclaiming the round table.
Ah.
Edith
Yes.
Stassin's free
Yes.
summit that's coming on very soon, and she's taught me so much about Celtic mythology and witches.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm sure there'll be something very interesting on that for you. But
Oh
very
yeah.
exciting for you to bring it into London because, yeah, I just feel like not enough. And if I'm wrong, please, people reach out. People are doing this kind of work
Yeah.
in London. It excites me so much,
Yes.
which is why your work excites me so much. So yeah, the more that we
Likewise.
find each other in
Yeah.
London, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I feel like. It's these people like these connections are being made.
yeah.
So it's happening. It is happening. Yeah. Definitely. I'm very
Great.
excited about your new play. Though
Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. The dark
I'm
agenda.
very excited to hear about that.
Yeah,
That's wow. That sounds mind blowing. That's like, whew. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting back to writing that next week because it's been we had a big
Excellent.
long break because of Awaken, so I'm back in.
Yeah.
The dark agenda, I'm coming for you.
Bloody hell, that's going to be intense. Make sure you surround yourself with black roses at all times.
I will, yeah, which is why I'm
A
teaching
wall
at
of
the
black
same
rose.
time. The black
Yeah.
rose flower, so I can do this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for speaking today. It's been such a
Oh,
pleasure.
Cheryl, thank you so much. I really enjoyed. What a chat. God, I could just talk all day
I know.
about
Well,
this
we'll have
stuff.
to do this again. I'm coming to the Buddha tour whenever
Yeah.
that's ready, and that will be my third one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's amazing that you've come to. I thank you so much for supporting. Honestly, I really, it really means a lot, especially someone like you with the work you do. And yeah, I will let you know as soon as that's. And obviously we're in contact, so
Yes.
I'll know what you're doing,
out, I think.
and you'll know what I'm doing. Yes, I'll be watching you. Okay. Sorry, so that's my fake medium voice going on there. My fraudulent medium voice. Oh God.
Fraudulent medium.
Oh, honestly, yeah. Reclaim mediums. Yes, they're not fraudulent. Okay, awesome. Thank you for the chat today.
Thank you.
Yeah.